Dare to Lead is an in-depth look into vulnerability and its vital role in effective daring leadership, filled with stories, strategies, and action plans. It is a mix of existing ideas from previous works, new insights, and fresh findings from Brené Brown's own research. The book touches comprehensively on the relationship between vulnerability and courage and how it can transform the workplace. Based on the author's findings, courage is a skill that can be learned and taught rather than a personality trait, as it is often believed to be. Brown sets forth an expansive study of the 4 skill sets of courage that are built upon vulnerability, with the strong belief that the development of all skills is possible only with a willingness to lean into vulnerability. Dare to Lead is for anyone who's willing to step away from norms into the unfamiliar territory of leading by leaning and during difficult situations, hard conversations, unpredictable emotions, and moments of risk. It's for you if you aspire to effect change with your leadership style and are ready to put some interesting practices into action in order to do good work. Questions this book answers. 1. How do daring leaders effectively practice well-balanced vulnerability in the workplace? 2. What are the differences between armored leadership and daring leadership? 3. What is the relationship between shame and empathy within the workplace? 4. What are the ways in which courage and vulnerability are interlinked? 5. Why are identifying values and living into values so essential for leaders? Vulnerability plays a big part in workplace relationships, environment, conversations, processes, productivity, and innovativeness. Because of this, it is crucial for daring leaders to learn what vulnerability really means and what it can do to strictly determine whose opinions matter the most, how it should be practiced, and if it will be fitting or fruitful depending on the situation. It is important to know that vulnerability isn't synonymous with oversharing or disclosing a great deal of personal information with colleagues or employees, and that doing so doesn't necessarily mean that leaders have good vulnerability rumbling skills. There are leaders who share very little but possess these skills, whereas some others, who unveil a great deal beyond what's necessary, may have minute or no rumbling skills at all. Rumbling here doesn't mean street fighting, but having a possibly difficult conversation, with a deep commitment to lean into vulnerability, or as psychologist Harriet Lerner puts it, to listen with the same passion with which we want to be heard. When leaders rumble with vulnerability, it can do wonders for teams within the workplace, but it is vital to establish the line of separation between healthy vulnerability and the misuse of it as a tool for marketing, manipulation, protection, oversharing, or expression of hidden alternative emotions. As a daring leader, it will be useful to ponder what will be shared, why it should be shared, and who to share it with when practicing vulnerability in the workplace, to ensure the intentions are clear and apt. When individuals are certain and clear about their core values, they usually aspire to act, think, talk, and live in a manner that is in alignment with their beliefs. These values should be so ingrained that they remain unchanged regardless of where the individuals go, who they're with, or what they're doing. When they are going through difficult moments or uncomfortable situations, their core values will serve as a reminder for them to push through and to consistently choose what's right, rather than what's easy in the moment. Trust and connection are built when people at work take the time to learn about each other's top few core values, as they will be able to understand what drives each person and how they choose to operate. Living into values, the act of actually putting beliefs into practice, is essential in shaping the way employees work by providing focus, purpose, and self-awareness. As great as it is to have values in the workplace, they become irrelevant when they aren't operationalized into practices that can be taught to and exercised by the people. Individuals need to assess and hold themselves, as well as each other, accountable in everyday work life for staying aligned with these values. Companies have increasingly started implementing the concept of bringing your whole self to work, but most fail to follow through with acceptance or taking visible actions to support employees. Some leaders still tend to prefer a clear separation between work and heart due to the belief that individuals will be more competent, productive, organized, and easier to keep in check when emotions are left out of the process. When employees are put in an environment where they are only rewarded for how fast and flawless they work, they will eventually put up an armor to maintain that appearance. Displaying emotions and having heart in the workplace tend to be seen as weaknesses. As such, leaders may encourage the armor that employees put on without realizing how this negatively affects their overall performance. With more awareness and understanding, the emotions and heart that are needed for vulnerability will actually allow individuals to work better. In a world where machines and artificial intelligence are replacing human beings in a wide variety of jobs, the human heart and its capacity for countless emotions is the single most important thing that differentiates individuals from technologies. When humans make full use of the heart, remove armors, and have the courage to rumble with vulnerability, their place will not be compromised despite the rise of machines. In order to encourage this, leaders should practice daring leadership and avoid armored leadership. Picture this scenario of when everything is running smoothly in the workplace. Employees are completing all tasks, project deadlines are being met, creative ideas are proposed, innovations are constantly discussed, individuals are motivated, and productivity levels are at an all-time high. What comes to mind is the most likely reason why this might be. What's the driving force? It may be a rarity for any business, office, or leader to attribute the success of a workplace to something that might seem as simple as communication, but it plays one of the most significant roles. In the workplace, it's very likely for individuals to have different perspectives on time, timelines, methods, ideas, and priorities regarding the workload or project. Working with groups of people generally means having to constantly deal with conflicting sets of emotions, concerns, questions, uncertainties, opinions, and expectations. Therefore, it is crucial for leaders to have the courage to communicate vulnerably with all colleagues and employees, regardless of how uncomfortable or difficult the conversations and topics might be. It's beneficial for leaders to put in the time to both learn from their team through listening and to also share what affects work or attitude at work, what contributes to productivity, how issues can be resolved, how help can be given from others in order to build trust and connection and to work better as a team. When it comes to rumbling sessions, it would be useful to allow exceptions from time to time for employees to try, share, participate, do or not do what they usually would. The choice of language also plays a part in daring leadership in ways that aren't always obvious. When leaders choose the right words to use in dealing with specific situations and emotions, it will allow employees to identify and work on the issues they might be facing more accurately. In the workplace, individuals still have the tendency to link perfectionism to positive connotations. The belief that perfectionism equates to high-quality work, prompt completion, excellent results, great success, and elimination of errors is a harmful one in so many ways. Based on the author's research, perfectionism is among the top 3 choices of armor for employees to self-protect with. This might stem from the desire to receive praise, avoid shame, seek approval, or appear flawless in every aspect. These individuals might have a warped view of perfectionism, believing that reaching it will lead them down the path of success and recognition. However, perfectionism is actually an unhealthy trait that sets employees up for failure and creates damaging relationships with their co-workers as well as with themselves. They also tend to self-blame and treat themselves harshly whenever they perform poorly or receive any form of negative feedback, which is bound to happen at some point for every employee. Armored leaders tend to encourage this behavior and utilize the fear of failure to bring about results, which creates destructive habits within employees in the long run. Perfectionism might prevent employees from fully realizing their potential, exploring the level of their strengths, and seeing what they can accomplish when they aren't holding themselves back due to the fear of not being good enough. Being a daring leader in this situation would require the willingness to discuss this in depth with your team and come up with ways for employees to adopt a healthier approach to working. There is a common reflex in the way humans think and react to having something amazing happen to them in life. After the initial celebration, most individuals will move straight onto all the possible negative things that might occur as a response to the good they have just experienced. Joy and vulnerability are interlinked, and the intensity of the emotion of joy can be so overwhelming for people that they put up an armor upon experiencing it. This is because experiencing pure joy inherently puts people in a vulnerable state where they can easily be hurt. Thus, people begin to prepare themselves for how to handle all the pain, even though nothing has actually happened. In the workplace, foreboding joy tends to appear in the form of hesitation to celebrate wins and withholding recognition. The reasons why leaders or employees hold back on celebrating and recognizing accomplishments can be simply reduced to fear. The fear of issues arising because the team takes a breather, or the fear of employees getting self-satisfied and consequently not taking their jobs as seriously. Armored leadership is strong on leading based on these types of fears, whereas daring leaders will take the time for gratitude, appreciation, and celebration of small triumphs. Shame is a common emotion that all human beings have experienced before, and it's one that most people are typically uncomfortable bringing up or talking about. When individuals encounter or are threatened by it, the immediate response is to armor up by retiring into safety. This move doesn't actually prevent future shame, but it most certainly does give it more power. People react this way because they have an innate desire for connection, love, and belonging. Much of what they do in life are naturally driven by this desire, but shame carries the possibility of disconnection for them. It's difficult to pinpoint shame within the workplace, but it shows itself through the prominent practices of employees and leaders, with some examples being bullying, blaming, gossiping, perfectionism, and favoritism. Within the workplace, daring leaders aim to limit or not use shame at all, but no organization is entirely shame-free despite this. Shame resilience, the process of moving from shame to empathy, is a powerful practice because deep relationships and connections are built when people confront their shame and talk about it with others who are empathetic. The act of sharing and listening to others requires courage from both parties to embrace vulnerability. Empathy is a fitting antidote for shame because the very practice of it utilizes one's connection with another as a guide for its effectiveness. It creates the kind of environment in which shame doesn't thrive but instead nurtures the type of environment that favors connecting, understanding, trusting, and healing. Trust plays a crucial role in every relationship that individuals have, even the one they have with themselves. Without trust, connection in the workplace between teams and individuals are not possible. It's the strongest link that holds everyone together. As important as trust is, people still tend to avoid talking about it because it's difficult and could easily go wrong, but it's absolutely necessary. When it comes to the trustworthiness rumble, it's important to be as specific as possible by pinpointing specific behaviors in order to allow for real change to happen. The Braving Inventory, the 7 behaviors that define trust, is a rumble tool designed for individuals to fill out on their own first and then have a one-on-one discussion afterward to talk about where experiences are a match and where they diverge. The 7 elements of this inventory are boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, non-judgment, and generosity. With the use of the Braving Inventory, teams are also encouraged to develop observable behaviors for each of the elements and the method in which they want to operationalize them. Developing trust with others is important, but the success of that is highly dependent on an individual's relationship with self-trust. If individuals don't have a good relationship with trust themselves, it will be much harder to build it with others. The acronym BRAVING stands for boundaries, reliability, accountability, vault, integrity, non-judgment, generosity. Daring leaders implement braving into their workplace, especially at team meetings, in order to create an environment that lends itself to open dialogues to build success.